Welcome, everybody, to the PFF College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Galina. And on today's episode, we talked to former Ohio State linebacker and former St. Louis Rams linebacker and former New Orleans Saint linebacker, James Laurinaitis, to get his thoughts on Ohio State, the Big Ten, and just kind of linebacker play in general, how it's changed, how defense has changed. Actually, really interesting conversation because, and I bring this up during the conversation, but he straddled the line in kind of two different eras of football in the NFL. So we talked about that, talked about how, he was brought up as a hockey player out in the state of hockey, Minnesota, and then chose football, how he got to Ohio State, the positions he played early. It's crazy, the amount of the name dropping that he does, because of course there's stars playing around him at Ohio State all his years there, and then obviously in the NFL play with some good players too. So we talked about that, and then of course talked to Anthony Treash previewing this week's top 25 games. So I think at the time that I recorded with James, the Ohio State news hadn't come out in terms of them. They will be playing in the Big Ten title game against Northwestern. So, I mean, we didn't get into it too much, in terms of those specifics, so it's not really a big deal. But just letting you guys know that did happen after we recorded. So, without further ado, here's James Laurinaitis. I am joined now by James Laurinaitis, analyst for the Big Ten Network and radio show host and former linebacker for the St. Louis Rams, New Orleans Saints, and the Ohio State Buckeyes, who unfortunately won't be playing. Well, you know what? Honestly, they probably, I guess at this point, we're recording this Wednesday afternoon. I guess they're probably not going to be playing this weekend, though. Who knows at this point? They might find a game somewhere, and that would be great, actually. Is that what you would like to see happen?
I mean, I love watching this team play anyway, just because I think college football has gotten robbed of seeing Justin Fields and just how good he is, and Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. And the first thing that I thought of was, like, in the grand scheme of things, Ohio State will hopefully, I mean, there are some scenarios I think that would keep them out of the playoff, but hopefully will be in. These are kids that don't get, a senior day, although it would have been different anyway, still playing Michigan. They don't get a day to have an opportunity to win another pair of gold pants. And there are memories in this. The prevailing argument here is that, well, it doesn't matter if the Big Ten doesn't change the rule, right, and put them in the Big Ten title game. They'll still probably win in the sixth game and go. But you start to think to yourself, well, it does matter. Like, these kids want to win the Big Ten. Like, it does matter to that locker room. And I just can't imagine the ebbs and flows emotionally that they've gone through this season.
I think that for me, like, just thinking about the players, you don't get, okay, you ended up playing, 8 years in the NFL, 9 years in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't get that. Like, this is it for a lot of people, and it's such a fun sport. And I'm 32 years old. I would love to go back and play again. Like, I think we all, especially those of us who's maybe didn't take the hits that you did for in your 20s. We'd all love to go back and play. So I just feel bad for the kids that are going to play 5 games, 6 games, and then maybe a bowl game and maybe the Big Ten title game. So that's what I feel the worst for. So I wanted to start with your life, your career. You grew up in Minnesota, in the state of hockey, and you were, according to Wikipedia, you were a very good hockey player. So I was curious what position you play and what type of player were you?
Well, I was a defenseman, and then I would move the center on the power play. We did more of like a box plus one on the power play. So my job on the PP was just to basically get in front of the goalie and screen and just I would get hacked in the back of the legs. I'd get, beat up in there. I not only drew penalties, but I gave out penalties, probably way too many that coach would have liked. I loved hockey. I did, but football was always my passion. My dad loved football. That was our love for the game of football was so deep. And I remember always wanting to play football over hockey, if you will. So that's kind of been my story and my history with the game of football versus hockey.
My dad used to yell at the television watching the Canadians play that they wouldn't put a big man in front of the net on the power play. That was his thing for years. they would just yell because the Bruins were doing it with Chara. They were putting Chara in front of the net. And if the Bruins can do it, why can't the Canadians do it? That was his thing. Anyways,
no doubt.
So you started playing football later, or you were doing it at the same time, but then football just kind of took its place?
Yeah, do it at the same time. And thankfully they didn't overlap too much. In high school, you might start a few games late. But I started skating before I played football because you can't play football before fourth grade in Minnesota. So you started skating at 2.5. That's just what you did. You found a way to get on the ice and started playing pond hockey whenever the winter came and it froze. You're going on the nearest pond and let's go. Let's put some nets out there. Let's grab a puck, some hand warmers, skate warmers. Let's roll. And that was the fun thing for me, was that the games are so different. They're both team sports, but I feel like, and even you see it today, like no matter how good Tom Brady is or Russell Wilson or any of these cats in football, man, you need guys around you. That's just evident in football way more than hockey. I played growing up in our little youth league. I played with Blake Wheeler, who's the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. And Blake, I mean, goodness, if we ever got in a pickle where we weren't performing, it's like Blake could take the puck in our end, skate all the way down, boom, it's in the net. And you're like, oh, yeah, we won. Like, no, Blake won. Blake won the game. And I just felt that's the difference between the two sports.
And so when you started playing, you get to high school football, were you always an inside linebacker, or did you move around and finally find that later?
So freshman year, I was a defensive end and I was a quarterback. Found out that I'm not it wasn't as easy to play quarterback once everyone else got better as, youth football was. Again, teammates with Blake. I drop back, Blake, go route. Blake's been 6'4" since 6th grade. So boom, go throw it up to him. He was mossing everybody. When everyone else started to grow too, I got worse at quarterback, it seems. But DN, and then because of injuries, we really needed somebody to play Mike linebacker my freshman year. And so I jumped in and never went back and loved it. I played some tight end in high school, but just more of a blocking guy.
And Mike specifically throughout your career, did you ever play Will? Did you ever play Sam? Or
So I played Sam my freshman year at Ohio State. I backed up Bobby Carpenter and Marcus Freeman. Marcus is now, with the Bearcats D coordinator, and Marcus got hurt the first kickoff against Miami, Ohio. And then I got thrust in there as backup, and I probably would have redshirted if Marcus didn't get hurt. And then Bobby gets hurt against Michigan, but I played Sam that year. I hated Sam. I hated it. I didn't like being on the line of scrimmage. Yeah, I didn't like I like to be off the ball and read and react and go. And plus I like being involved on every single play. I hate ball goes away and I'm shuffling for contain, and then I sprint and, get a run in. If I'm going to run, I want to hit, so I hated Sam.
Did you have a moment, I assume most linebackers do early in their, when they're going from high school to college, in high school, there is a lot of see ball, go get ball. That's it, right? If there's a hole there, I'll go find it, whatever, but I'm just going to go find the ball. I'm probably a better athlete. Clearly, you end up going to Ohio State. I don't have your recruiting rankings in here, but clearly you were
3-star, man.
3-star. Okay.
Yeah, I was barely a 3-star.
Okay. But so my question is, when does the game? So now you go to college and you play Sam, but then you do transition back into inside at Mike. You're still trying to run around. But then at what point does it click for you? And maybe it didn't click until the NFL, but what time does it click for you? This is happening, so I do this. This is happening, so I do this. I can't just go run because I see something. I see color over there. Does that happen at some point?
Well, so the mental part clicked for me in high school because we played so many wing T teams. So it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So guards follow the guards, right? So don't ignore all the back stuff. Follow the guards and get to your guy. And so that helped me kind of zone in. That's where I started drawing up cards with my defensive coordinator in high school, and the mental part really made sense. But the physical habits were the big thing for me. In high school, as you said, I can run through a guard. The guard's 250. Hat in hands. No, I'm just going to run through them and try to make this tackle. I got to Ohio State, bro. For one, I never thought I'd play. I knew the seniors at that time were Anthony Schlegel, Bobby Carpenter, and AJ Hawk. I knew about them, but I didn't know about the guys that were recruited under them, right? You don't know about, I didn't know Marcus Freeman was a Army All-American. I didn't watch that. I didn't care. I got there and I'm like, oh, this is going to be tough. So I didn't think I'd play. let alone, in camp, I'm going through scout team and our center's Nick Mangold. So, first time I try to go run through Nick Mangold at center, trying to, use my high school technique, he baptized me so fast. I just, so you learn real quick, like, okay, probably should listen to Coach Fickle, start to use some of your technique. Still use the mental stuff about where to go, what to do, all that. But really it was the physical technique of, I can't play the same way as I did in high school. And that served me well, because the jump from even Ohio State, I mean, we played, Mike Hart, Rashad Mendenhall, we played some good backs, but those are at minimum, those style of backs every single week in the league. You go from that to having Marshawn Lynch twice and Frank Gore twice in your division, Tim Hightower before he hurts his knee in Arizona, with Beanie Wells before they get hurt. I mean, that's 220-pound backs that are bringing it every down. Better play with good technique.
This is a stupid question. Does it hurt to play football?
Oh gosh, I was so we just did this like charity football signing for kind of the Columbus division of NFL alumni, and it was myself, Andy Katzenmoyer, AJ Hawk, and Chris Spielman, and we all had the same kind of reflection. Like when I watched the game today, for one, I'll see some hits where I'm like, gosh, how did I ever convince myself to do that? And then there's some kind of envy of like feeling like you did when you were 20, like, because I feel like you didn't feel cold, you didn't feel anything. Let's just go out there and play. Let's roll. Like workouts were so much easier. Now if I go in the weight room, I'm like, I have to psych myself up if I'm gonna do any legs. I'm like, come on, let's go. You can do this. But yeah, football it's painful. And even to watch it now, you're just like, whew, that is a violent sport.
As I've gotten older, I'll just see it. Any hit. I mean, it could be just, a nothing, like it's just a tackle, in the A gap, a tackle, in the B gap, a tackle, linebacker, running back, whatever. But you look at it, you think, now obviously these guys are prepared to get hit when you're playing football. I understand that. But like, if that happened, if you got hit by another human being walking down the street, you'd be out. That'd be it. Like you'd be in the hospital. You wouldn't want to get up for the rest of the week. You'd take off work for the rest of the week. And then in football, you just get up and play literally 35 seconds later. It's kind of wild. And
the bruises that you would even practice with after a game, right? Like I'd wake up, I had some bruises one time. I got hit helmet right in my thigh pad. And at that time I was just basically putting tape around the plastic shell of the thigh pad. There was no pad around it. But that outline of that thigh pad, which we all know what it looks like, the raised 3 little ridges, was bruised into my quad. I could not walk down the stairs on that Monday, but yet by Wednesday practice, I'm out there running, going, and you're just like, you don't even think about it. Like it's time to roll. We're playing. And look, there's probably things looking back I wish I wouldn't have played with. My last year in St. Louis, I played with a slightly torn UCL. So like basically what happens to Tommy John in your elbow. I wore one of those JJ Watt arm braces, looked awful wearing it, but you think I'm tough, I'm going to play through it. But like looking back, you're like, bro, all it made me do was miss a lot of tackles because I couldn't use my right hand, and then you're getting judged off that. So there's some things where I'm like, yeah, you're probably dumb for playing with that. But they're in the moment. You're just like, let's roll.
Well, I should have asked you this before, but why Ohio State?
Oh gosh, really luck by chance. I grew up a huge Minnesota Gophers fan. My best friend growing up was Dominique Barber. His older brother was Marion Barber. So we always watched Gopher football. I rooted for them hard against everybody. I remember cheering for them when they upset Ohio State. Glenn Mason back in the day upset them in the shoe. I remember Nystrom hitting the kick against Penn State, LeVar Arrington out there. I remember them talking about practicing over like a 10-foot ladder because of his vertical and just being like, that's sick. He's got that kind of vert. But I remember everything about Gopher football. And I was committed my junior year. And Coach Trussell actually told me this story. My like English teacher at Wayzata High School in Minnesota was from Ohio, big Buckeye fan. And I had sent basically my tape out to every Big Ten school. And so she had sent a letter to Ohio State saying, you should check out this linebacker. And Jim says, he goes, I got the letter. And I go, Minnesota. Does anybody here recruit Minnesota? And it turns out his brother had coached at Hamlin in Minnesota, which is like a D3 school. And he goes, I know the area a little bit. I'll go up there and I'll check out a game. And we were playing a private school, Cretin-Durham Hall, who was ranked high. And I happened to have the game of my life in high school, but I didn't even know Ohio State was there. turns out I ended up taking a visit. They had an offer for me because some kid from Columbus, Alex Daniels, actually decommitted and went to Cincinnati, I believe. And I was just there. And what's weird is that I was like really close to my parents. So nothing about like me as a human would have said, I'm going to leave home in 12 and a half hours drive away from home. Like everyone would have thought I would have stayed home. But when I took the visit to Columbus, it was something about Coach Tressel, really Luke Fickell. I just felt like here was this tough coach who was going to get everything out of me. And then if I really wanted to play pro football at that time, I wanted to go to a university where if I started at Ohio State, somebody would give me a chance to play pro football. And that's ultimately what made me say yes. Now, like I said, I got there and I was like, shoot, did I make the wrong choice? But I'm obviously glad I did.
So Fickell was your defensive coordinator, and then now Fickell's defensive coordinator was, like you said, your the starting Sam or the backup Sam on that team.
My closest friend from college, he's down there. I'll give him crap all the time. I said, you still can't leave, coach.
I don't think I've seen some of the teams are doing some of the stuff that they're doing, but I didn't know. So they're winning games. I'm looking in our database, playing a lot of man coverage. I was like, oh well, that makes sense because Ohio State's played man coverage for so long, so they must be running the same defense. And then when I actually put the tape on for Cincinnati, I was like, whoa. 3 down, guys are mugged. 1 guy's mugged, 2 guys mugged. This guy's coming. I was like, wait a minute. And I put a video out on Twitter because I was like, this is what I want to see defenses become. Speed. I don't think you can necessarily live in a 4-down world so much anymore. So, but what a lot of teams. So my thing was after I watched them was what you're seeing in the NFL a lot, and in college too with the tight front is that bear. 3 guys inside nose, guys either on the outside shoulder of the guard or the inside shoulder of the tackle. And then in the NFL, you got those 2 big guys, as like 5 techs, let's say, on the outside. In college, they play a little off, depending, whatever. But then I was like, you're playing 5 down. Teams could spread you out. Now you don't have a lot of second level defenders. So what I liked about Cincinnati was they're in between a 3 down, a 4 down, sometimes 5 down, but now they can move players around and still got guys available in the second level. It also helps when you can play man coverage and lock everyone down every play, but that's a whole other story.
No doubt.
Anyway, so that's kind of my introduction to Cincinnati this year has been tremendous in terms of like really understanding the game and where it's going, I think, in the future.
And we've had that scheme, like Luke's had that philosophy. Like back in the day, it was a little different because that overhang player was more of like a D end LB tweener on both sides. And then as the game has changed, now that becomes a nickel / LB body, and everyone else is getting lighter and speed. It's the same scheme. It's just what's the body type doing it. And that's where you become very multiple. And Greg Williams had similar philosophy on that. And I know it's been a rough week for Greg, but but his whole philosophy is like, we want to appear so multiple to the offense, but to us, it's the same blitz patterns over and over, just different people running it. So an offense might identify us as, oh, well, cheat Sam single is cheat Sam single. Well, in base, it's called cheat. In nickel, it's called nickel cheat Sam single, but the Sam is a nickel. And then if at 3 down, it's the same blitz patterns, but now it's, gosh, now what are they in? And it looks like confusion, but it's the same blitz patterns, everybody. But it's funny. I talked to Marcus last week. He goes, when you have 9 of 11 guys back, starters, he's like, it's easy to be a great coach. You can almost get sloppy because you can just, like you said, play man a bunch. And then we can send different blitzes because we have experience. We had a bunch of freshmen out there. We're not playing man and we're not sending these blitzes because you're worried about a guy busted, So I think sometimes when you look at coaches, it's hard to evaluate truly. And I'm sure it too, because like Ryan Day getting coach of the year, no matter who you talk to, there are some people who are going to say, oh gosh, you give me that talent, I could win coach of the year every year. Right. But doesn't mean Ryan Day's a bad coach. He's a dang good coach and the schemes he does are outstanding. I think sometimes you can get exposed as a bad coach. Like when you see the recruiting rankings and you're like, hold on, they've recruited in the top 5 over and over. Why has the defense gotten this much worse? There's some things there. But I love what Marcus is doing and I love their philosophy, and it's fun to see them tinker with what we ran and how much it's changed because it has morphed a lot because you can't do gosh, back then with us, it was guys like we had DN outside backers, Thaddeus Gibson. He tried to move around a little bit. But that bear front, I love playing behind that bear front. You cover up that center and you put those like threes kind of loose, because when we would go against Russell Wilson and Kaepernick, now you can send the nose a certain way and you try to cut off the zone read. So at least you're trying to, if they give it or keep it, you're trying to force Gore or force Marshawn to cut to a certain area. You're not telling your backer stacked, hey, you have to cover this left A gap and also the right C. Coach, that's a long way to go. If anyone gets up to me, that's hitting 8-9 yards every time. So the bear front, I think, does sometimes give confusion to the O-line.
Well, I would imagine playing a backer when you're covered up like that is pretty nice. Like just find ball, go with flow, I guess, and find the ball and go hit. I was watching the Bucks because they play a lot of bear, and you see those two guys there, the two really. So you have the bear front, and then you're adding two guys like Levante David and Devin White, behind there, just flowing sideline to sideline, and that's super nice. What you talk about like playing, we're in a different front. It may look different, but we're running the same stuff. Someone told me this about Venables maybe a couple of years ago when he went to all his 3-down stuff, and it's just like, it's just 4-down, but the 3-tech is a linebacker. Like it's like the same. Like nothing's really changed for him.
Yeah.
Now I've heard he's a mad scientist with all that stuff, but like you're trying to keep it simple because you got to keep it simple for the kids too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's harder, I would think, in college. And I've talked to Luke about that and Marcus and, everybody. It's because in college you're stuck with the kids. In the NFL, coaches can say, you don't get it. If you have a really good player and they don't get it, okay, we got tweaks and stuff. Like, why don't you get it? But if you're just a guy, like if the starters get it and you're a backup and you don't get it, okay, you're out of here. Cut. We don't have to, you have to get it or we're moving on. It's a different philosophy, but you're right. And that 3-3-5 and even the 3-down that Venables does, you're absolutely right. If you're telling that nose who looks head up and now he's moving to the left A gap and the backer's blitzing the B, you've put X's in the same gaps. It's just a different way of doing it. And so now the backer's off the ball. Now, sometimes it wins. You win with the speed of the backer getting in there. And sometimes, you think, this is really more for pass downs. And now they hit us on a crease. I'm studying right now. I have Rutgers in Maryland this week. And when you watch John Hoke on defense for Maryland, they are really confident in their corner. Same thing. It's all a lot of bear front. They're going to rush 5 every single time with different kind of patterns. And they're going to play man and challenge you every single snap. And then Shiano has all this, man trap stuff, walked up games and all that because they're a little undersized at spots. And it's just fun to see how coaches try to massage their scheme to get plays made.
Well, this, talking about Shiano leads me into my next question. So he leaves Ohio State. He, like you said, he's doing stuff on defense.
Yeah.
They come in last year with Jeff Hafley, and now this year with it's Kerry Coombs, right? I'm not making that up. Okay.
Kerry Coombs, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so they're running similar. I mean, Coombs has his own stuff, and Hafley has his own stuff. But at the end of the day, and maybe this is a Ryan Day thing. Maybe this is what he wants his defense to look like. But they show you one high, man to man, and they play one high, man to man. And I guess can you? So. That looks great when you have the corners they had last year, the safeties, the D-line talent last year. When they go and, we're assuming that I think they will play in the playoff. When they go against Alabama, when they go against Clemson, the Clemson doesn't have the receivers they had, but they don't have the quarterback. Are they going to get exposed at some point with just? No, it's either cover 1 or cover 3. But at the end of the day, cover 1 is cover 3 sometimes, and cover 3 is cover 1 sometimes. So I just want that's my concern with Ohio State's defense right now is like, do they have the players to just show it and play it the whole season?
And that's the marriage of rush and coverage, right? I mean, it's like whenever there's a big pass, everyone's cussing out the DBs, and you're like, well, if the quarterback has 3 seconds to throw, 4 seconds, then anyone's going to be able to hit that. Someone's going to get open. That's the issue is that, for one, it is Ryan Day. Ryan Day loves that idea of let's just play fast. Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's get our backers off the ball. We out-recruit everybody. Let's run. Now, when you have, Sean Wade, that was your nickel last year, right? And you had 2 first-round picks on the outside, and you have Chase Young, who's tearing it up, as your DN. There's already a clock, and even if he doesn't get there, the quarterback think he's close. And so it's like you can be aggressive. You can jump routes. It's been a little bit combination of both. They haven't played the high point well this year. I think they've struggled with personnel at safety. Yeah. And I think at DN, you have guys who are, I think you have a couple of guys who will play on Sunday, but they're the 4th, 5th round picks, right? 3rd round picks. They're not the Chase Young yet. And you've been spoiled in Columbus. The fact that you've gone Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young, that doesn't happen, every single year. So it's stupid, right? So, I think it's kind of like the Seahawks. When the Seahawks have Earl and Cam and Bobby Wagner in the middle, sure, we can play 3-1. Let's play fast. You know what we're in. We know what you're going to run against the 3, single high beaters. And we're just going to play better than you. When talent starts to leave and go away, now we got, do we have the guys? Do we have the rush? Do we have the coverage? It's difficult. I don't know. That's that. You're asking the $1 million question about, because that's everyone's anxiety in Columbus. I promise you, is the secondary / rush. Once you play, Jones, and whether it's Ian Book or even, Trevor, one of those guys, they all have talent that we haven't seen yet.
And like you said, the rush and the pass coverage is one thing. The flip side of that is, hey, we got a gap. Everyone's got a gap in the run game.
Yeah.
Now they'll stunt some people and move some people around, in the run game, but really that's your gap. You're staying in it, and then you're gonna go make a play in that gap. So I've been learning more about the differences between 2 high coverages and 1 high coverages. And when I coach linebackers, and I'm not a linebacker coach, I'm a quarterback coach. For some reason, I became a linebacker coach for a team, and it was probably their mistake. But we didn't care. So let's say I'm talking about the Will. The Will's got the B gap in an over front, right? Whether he was the flat defender and he had no one outside of him, or he was the hook defender and he had a flat guy outside of him, I didn't tell him anything differently in terms of how he was fitting against the run. And now I'm learning that, okay, well, sometimes, if you're a 2 high team, we got to do stuff because we don't have enough players in the gaps. And if we're a 1 high team, then we do have enough players in the gaps. But my question for you is, on a play for play basis, playing inside linebacker, did it matter, or did you guys just play it the way you guys played it? And whether it was cover 4 or cover 1, it didn't really matter. Well, cover 1 may be different, but cover 4 or cover 3, it didn't really matter. Whether you're like, they call it like stack shack fall back, or saying, what was the difference there on a play for play basis?
Man, you're talking about, that's play for play. That's coach for coach. Okay. When I was under Luke Fickell, he was very much stack and fall back. We played a ton of quarter half. And it was, run strong, stack, go get that center to come off and then pace the back. And so you make a tackle for a 3-yard gain. That's a plus. Boom. You stacked, you cover 2 gaps. You're playing where you play for some coaches, damn it, go hit that center in the forehead and don't wait, and you're like, well, why? If he cuts back, I gave myself up. Why can't I fall back then? I don't care. That's somebody else. Okay. All right. And you just, and so am I going to get cut because I'm not listening, or am I going to listen? And, so it's hard to really grade. That's why when I try to do analysis on teams and linebackers, I try to figure out how are they teaching them to play it. And I'll ask coaches, are you, because I want to be able to critique correctly. Cover 2, Greg Williams. We would stunt almost every single time if we thought it was a run. And that's every single down you're in cover 2. You're putting on some kind of stunt to account for the missing the extra guy in the box. And my first read as a Mike backer was, I'm looking at number 2. So if we're in 11 personnel, if they're in 11, 3 wides, 1 tight end, and I got a number 2 that is a burner, well, now I'm deepening up to 6 yards because I'm a pass first defender as a Mike. That's totally against everything in my nature, being a Mike linebacker, right? So now I stunt the front. And I know that if the ball hits, it has to hit in one of the alleys. So C gap to C gap. And I also have to look at 2. So if 2 comes in to block the nickel, now I can look and start a trigger. But so everyone watching tape is like, why is he so late to get there? Well, I'm responsible for the middle of the field first, so there's that. A lot of the 3 deep single, same thing. You're going to take one back, 1 gap. Now you can be a little tighter. The problem with all that, what would naturally tell you the cheat is like when we played so much cover 2 is I had to try to disguise when I was in 3 and 2. So if I just line up at 6 yards every time, Drew Brees is going to be like, oh, they're in 2, check, kill. Yeah. Now, if we're in cover 3 and I'm lined up at 6 and our safeties hold that look, in Greg's scheme, they're 18 yards deep, at cover 2, 20 yards deep. If one of them starts to creep even like a half yard in front of the other, Drew already knows, boom, check, kill. And they're like, damn it, we gave it away. We're in 3. And so there's so many little tricks, let alone motion. Motion changes everything, changes what I like what Ohio State tries to do is they try to keep their single and three the same so that the linebackers' gaps don't change.
Exactly the same.
So everyone else moves around the backers. I played in some 3 deep where, hold on, I'm going from A gap to C gap. Now I make a call to the end. You're not in the C anymore. Now you're in the crease of the 2 tight ends. And now I'm in the C, and so it's like you're constantly moving and communicating, and then set hut, and you're like, oh shoot, where do my eyes go? So there's a healthy balance. And I like keeping the LB stationary, because if they can just, the more you can think about what are they going to try to do to us versus what am I doing? If you're still thinking about where am I aligning right and you're questioning yourself, you're going to be so slow no matter what 40 you run.
So you talked about cover 2, and this is a big question, so I apologize in advance, but you kind of straddled the line to a certain degree between maybe the end of the Tampa 2 era in the NFL and the beginning of this Seattle Seahawks, I always call it the Seattle Seahawks one high stuff. And in my opinion, I believe we're going to, the next thing is the Rams doing it, the Bears doing it, a lot of like quarter stuff, 2 high quarter stuff.
Yeah. No one ran quarters for a while, so now people forget how to attack it on offense. So
that's exactly it. So my question is, like, do you have an answer to why the Tampa 2 went away? Like, was it a personnel thing? You're talking about all of a sudden there's a burner at 2. All of a sudden that tight end can move around. So was it a personnel thing? Was it just offenses just figured it out? Like, what did you see in your playing days that you felt like, okay, this makes sense that we're moving away from this?
I think cover 2 is hard against the quarterback run. You're already undermanned with QB runs anyway. You're already going to put that to a light box, and now we really have issues. It takes a very special breed. That's why the Ryan Shaziers or Devin Whites and Levante David, Bobby Wagner, they're rare, because if you're going to play cover 2 and any of those guys, they can do it because they can look out and then they can run to the alley, and you trust them on most quarterbacks to make that tackle in space. Now, in a perfect world, like Greg Williams used to say to us, cover 2, everyone thinks the 7-man box. We're going to turn into a 9-man box with how fast we read as corners, right? So you read to you want your corner to hit it, boom, and you think you're attacking. Now, when you have a corner like Antoine Winfield, that works, like back in the Vikings when he ran cover 2. But hell, he raises up now on all this RPO stuff. They're running a run play, and they're just pulling it and throwing it. Now, what's my read? I think that's what's made it so hard is you're right. I was just at the end of the RPO era where we'd play Philly, and the whole line or Chip Kelly would split, and everything's telling you that's pass. But yet they hand it. I'm like, there's nobody blocking anybody in the middle. Like, how do I read this, coach? And unless you have the guys to do it man, where your man's going to take you to it, okay, you want to live that way. But then if you're not 100% disciplined, or you're just not that talented, it's going to be a long day. So I think the QB run, the zone, the RPO stuff has really made it difficult for D coordinators to run that. Now quarters becomes a little more match principles. When we played at Ohio State, even when we ran cover 3, everything was a man principle off the zone, right? So if I was a hook dropper, I was 3 to 2. Where's 3? 3 takes me to 2, push to the zone. Where a lot of cover 2 is more just zoned, like read off the quarterback's eyes. You better have some really fast, good players that are willing to trigger, under that scheme. And it can be done. When you have Tampa Bay was able to do it really well.
The Bears,
the Saints did it good enough. And when they won the Super Bowl, they also did a ton of blitzing, and they also had Drew Brees who could go make up for any big plays they gave up. Right. But Darren Sharper picked off everything that year. There's some teams that can do it. It's tough to live that way, man.
You talk about like the corners in cover 2, and like every defensive coach says the same thing. Is like, okay, but like you said, we're not 7,
on
6
paper,
to 7 in the box.
On paper,
we got these 2 guys outside. They're gonna trigger, and then now the quarters guys, especially in college, they're always like, guys, look, we're 9 in the box because our corners are off, but our safeties are at 8 yards, and it's like, hey,
right.
Have fun dealing against play action posts and stuff like that.
Well, that's why, so if you're doing that against a quarterback who's limited, and you want to run it, sure. So JT Barrett, very accomplished college quarterback, but teams started to figure out we can play our quarter safeties at 8 yards and leave our guys on islands out there. And we're going to live that chance that he's not going to beat us deep. The difference with like Justin is that Justin will. Okay, you want to live that way, then Olave and Wilson are going to beat you. And it's a total different dynamic. So that's the stress is you hope, okay, yeah, sure. Against a limited quarterback, I'm going to put my safeties up there at 8 and say, we're going to have extra guys for this run and prove it on the outside. What happens when you play a guy that can prove it on the outside? And then you start saying, hey, let's play Ohio State with cover 2. And then they start going 12 personnel and they start running Master Teague on all these zone stuffs, NFL type stuff. And then you oversell on that. And it's the, 2-man routes and Justin sitting back there baking a cake because it's mass protection. It's a nightmare to try to defend.
So they struggled. The one game that they kind of struggled in the second half, at least, was against Indiana a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And for me, what was fun about watching Indiana's defense in that game was because I don't know if you can just decide to do one thing against a great offense, and we know that, right? That's obvious. But they and they've done it a little bit going into that game, but they were sending the nickel and rotating this way and rotating that way. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. And I was wrong because I said last week, I was like, okay, I know they have a good defense, but now they're playing against, a 12 personnel team, a 22 personnel team, a 21 personnel team in Wisconsin. Like, are they fit? I was like, oh, this Indiana defense is more like a spread defense. Like, because they're going to rotate, they're going to send guys from different angles. Are they physical enough? And I was wrong about that one. And this is a legitimately good defense.
They are. And Tom Allen, I give him a ton of credit because he has this mentality of we're always going to attack. And Ohio State goes right down the field on him and scores. And you're like, oh, this blitzing, this attacking isn't, it's not going to be great. But you're right. He kept swinging and really, unless you really watch Indiana, but unless you watch them, they have about 60 linemen they can rotate through. So they're always rotating. They have really good cover corners that are they're just going to fight. They're going to play, and they play hard, and they love their coach. I love the stuff on what they're doing. And I think that they're just a very talented bunch. And Indiana, it's one of those brands, I feel like, that if they were labeled Penn State or Michigan, people would have a way different opinion of what the Hoosiers are.
Speaking of those two teams, Penn State and Michigan, my theory on those two teams is drastically different, even though they're both having pretty bad seasons. I think Penn State's probably still in a healthy spot going forward. I'm not so sure about Michigan anymore. It's been a few years now. They haven't gotten to the point that I think they wanted to get to. So I'm just curious where your thoughts are going forward with both of those programs.
They feel different. Penn State feels like they're just saying, the hell with this year. It's COVID. We're moving on. The hell with it. I think Michigan, you just don't know where the direction is going. What's the plan? What's the overarching plan? Michigan is great when they're able to come into Ohio, steal kids. I've always been on the opinion, I want Michigan chesty and bold coming in. I want it to be 1 versus 2. College football is better when it's like that. There's a lot of Ohio State fans who remember the 90s, and they're like, no, I want them to lose every – I'm like, this doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for the Big Ten, the rivalry, nothing. I want them good. What's weird is that, there hasn't been a first-round pick out of Michigan since Braylon, and that's unbelievable. And I was totally wrong on Harbaugh because I thought Harbaugh, instead of trying to match spread with Ohio State and Penn State, I thought he'd come in and be like, you know what? We're going to be what I was at Stanford. We're going to be what I was – we're going to be what Wisconsin and Iowa are, but just better, with better players. And go ahead, do all your fancy spread stuff. We'll recruit on defense to stop it, but we're also going to punch you in the mouth, and we're going to wear you down. We're going to have a pro quarterback. And it just hasn't happened. I don't know where they go. You feel like if he signs the extension, it's kind of like, If he goes to the NFL, you're like, well, at least it's something new. I don't know. Matt Campbell's from Massillon, so he knows Ohio. He's a hot name. I don't know if he'll ever be hotter than right now with where Iowa State is. They could try to swing at Luke. I have a hard time believing Luke would. Luke still has family here. So that's the hard thing is if you go, if Luke Fickell took a job at Notre Dame or at Penn State, people would give him a hard time, but they'd still see him and you still say hi to him. There'll be some nut job Ohio State fan who, if he ever took that job, you better not step foot in, you know what I mean? So and I don't know if he could handle it, but I don't think he wants that for his kids. And I have no knowledge. I'm not going to be the one to try to bring that subject up to him. I know he bleeds scarlet and gray. So, and he's content at Cincinnati. That's one thing that I think Luke Fickell, whether people are like, well, if Michigan offered him $8 million a year, I'm like, he's not motivated by money. Luke's motivated by the process, by building, by coaching young men. He's got kids in high school. I just don't know what he'd do. But again, if they landed him, hell, I don't know if anyone can recruit Ohio better than that man. Besides, obviously, Coach Day has a good grip on Ohio too. But they need somebody that's able to steal those kids and then, develop. It's the development. They've recruited fine, right? It's just, where's the development? I mean, you get the number one receiver and Donovan Peoples-Jones, and next he's a 7th-round pick or whatever he was. Like, he was the higher rated recruit than Judy. Yeah. So it's like, where's the development in this? I don't know, but I do want them to be back being great. Like, this game that was supposed to happen this weekend should make you absolutely terrified as a fan and give you that gut anxiety, because you know that team could take everything from you. And then, or you could beat them and take everything from them. And that's a good feeling. Like in 06, we knew, like, when we won, all right, you beat Michigan, you win the Big Ten. That's what it's for. And it hasn't been the case lately.
Do you think that Michigan is in the same boat, and maybe not to an extreme level, but in the same boat as, let's say, Nebraska, let's say Tennessee, where these were programs for many years who, like, I don't know enough about the history of those programs, but like, we're obviously very good. Like, the national title contenders every year for a long time. And now it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. There aren't a lot of good players in Nebraska. There aren't a lot of good players, but in Tennessee compared to the rest of the SEC states. And now you talk about how Michigan needs to go to another state. Is there similarity there of being like, well, hey, guess what? Michigan doesn't produce enough good players. We got to go outside. And if Ryan Day is locking down Ohio, that's a problem.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on our show. My co-host used to cover Florida State close, and he's like, we always try to pick like what program could come out of nowhere. He's like, because you don't understand how much people disrespected Clemson and didn't take them seriously for the longest time. And now they're that program where Florida State was that, and so even like Florida State, Miami, all these historical programs. What's unique about, you're right, Nebraska seems to be a museum. Trust me, everyone in the Big Ten would love for them. Much better weight it would cover for Ohio State if they're playing a one-loss Nebraska, because it's the brand. Everyone knows stories about Nebraska growing up. The move to the Big Ten has hurt them, I think, recruiting-wise. They can't now go to kids in Texas and say, hey, they didn't recruit you. Want to come play with us? And now you can beat them. Who are they recruiting against? You can't – no one's getting a direct flight except Chicago into Lincoln. So that's hard. I think it's hard. I think Penn State – so, like, big picture, Tennessee probably has the best chance. Well, hell, if you want to go to Texas – Texas has been utterly disappointing.
I don't understand anything what's going on.
I know. So, like, there's two schools, Texas and USC, where you're like, those were schools that were it when I was in school. And you're like, how you just feel like if you put Urban Meyer in either of them that wants to really like throw a culture of like winning and attacking and going, he could win in both of those places. I don't know if he will, but he could. And anyway, those are two schools that are primed for it to win. Tennessee is next, proximity of talent. SEC, can you go down to Georgia and steal some kids? Really good high school football there. They're still closer to talent than Michigan or Penn State, but Penn State's closer. I mean, Penn State can totally avoid Ohio if they wanted to. They used to recruit Ohio well. They still try, but they could avoid Ohio and go over to DC and Baltimore, Virginia, that whole area.
Doesn't New Jersey have weirdly a great high school
talent.
Football talent there? Yeah.
Yes. And so you could go over there and recruit your own little niche to where you're like, we're not even going against Ohio State head to head in certain areas. Now, Ohio State can go to these places too because they're national. But if you're Michigan, you have to go past Pennsylvania to try to go to the Baltimore area. Like Michigan, you look at their roster, they have like Rhode Island, Massachusetts. And you're like, Gatorade Player of the Year in Massachusetts. Like, that's like saying I was Mr. Football in Minnesota. Nobody cares. You're playing Minnesota high school football. If you're Mr. Hockey, people would care. So it's not disrespecting. It's just that the pool they're drawing from, Tennessee seems to be the one where you're like, okay, well, that's besides USC and Texas and like Florida State. Like, if you have that much talent around you, the problem is now Clemson is coming in and stealing a bunch of kids. Florida is coming back up again. Georgia has been taking kids. There's some baffling programs, but I would love it. I mean, we can just talk about that. Tennessee with like the river and the stadium, and like, gosh, you'd love to have them up on top of the SEC East or at least fighting for it. And now it's like, I'm getting exhausted with is so-and-so back? Is Nebraska back? Is Tennessee back? Is Miami back? No, it seems like there's a grip of the haves and the have-nots right now at the top of college football.
Okay, let me get you out of here with some quick ones here. whether it was college or the NFL, who was the I guess the quarterback that you had the most trouble with? And you talk about Breeze, you're playing against Breeze, but like I assume that the names are always going to, if I ask this to any linebacker in your era, the names will probably be the same, but who was the guy that like really you're like, man, I can't get a handle on this guy. I do this, he counters me. I do this, he counters me. Like what was that type of the situation like?
Well, thankfully the Rams, it was 2011, the Cardinals had just won the World Series. The Saints came in and they overlooked us. They had like a hot start. I think they only had one loss at that time. And I think we sacked Drew 7 times in the dome. That was a fun one for us.
I think Courtney Roby had a touchdown return in that game, and that was the only touchdown. I might be thinking about a different game. It was a late, and there was a late Reggie Bush touchdown. I believe this is out of my memory, but yeah.
We spanked them, and it was the Cardinals winning. It was the only one of the few games we won. Maybe two games that year. I don't even know. We weren't good. We had a good D line. We had like Robert Quinn, Chris Long. We always had a good D line. I still laugh over our D line. Like in 16 or 15, it was like Kendall Langford, Aaron Donald, Chris Long, Robert Quinn, Will Hayes, Eugene Sims. Like we had some dudes that were rotating through. We just couldn't move the ball, at all on offense. But anyway, I say Peyton Manning for 2 reasons. Peyton's snap cadence would frustrate you. Now I played him as my rookie year. I played him, and I didn't really play him again until Denver when he was on that struggling year. So that's 2 different Peytons. But when Peyton was rolling, and you're a rookie, also contributes to it, right? And Aaron Rodgers is difficult too because he makes it look like backyard. I mean, it's just so easy for him. But Peyton was hard because as a Mike linebacker, you're trying to set the front, and we were trying to do. Spagnuolo was our coach. So we're trying to do some disguise stuff, move on the first sound. He figures it out. So now he goes on, first down, boom, hut. So we're trying to. I didn't even make a move call. Who's aligned where? Then the ball goes, and then the next time you hurry up and get into your move call, and now he goes on 3. And so it's like, hut, and then he's like, sits there, he audibles, this, that, hut, doesn't go again. And now you're like, man, this guy. Then the next time he goes on 1, and then it's first sound. You can never get in a rhythm against him. And he was one of those guys that I remember covering Dallas Clark on a deep over. I could still see it. I'm in phase, boom, and I'm running. All of a sudden, shoot, right past my head. And I'm like, I just fell on Dallas. I'm like, where did the ball come from? He's covered. That was my first moment where I'm like, nobody's covered. Playing a good quarterback, never relax because nobody's covered.
When I went back and watched his first year in Denver was like 2013 or whatever it was, 2012, whatever. I think so. And I hadn't really I was a little younger, so I didn't dive into the tape as much as I did this offseason or last offseason when I watched it. And I was like, there's not a lot of him, there going through reads because he knew where he was going with the ball and he was so accurate with it that it didn't even matter. It was just it was perfect. And okay, and my next question is kind of the reverse of that, which is who was a guy who was a big time player who you thought you had his number throughout his career?
I'm not sure we ever had his number or anyone's number. I felt like we always played the Seahawks extremely well in St. Louis. Now, to our credit, those games are usually at noon, so they were early on their body clocks, and they're probably overlooking us. We played them tough year in, year out, but I'm not sure we ever had. Their number or anyone's number. Because the thing about it, especially personally, my whole game was a lot on preparation and knowing where to go, anticipation. I was never going to get in a sprinting contest with anybody. So athletically, I always felt like that NFL train was rolling on, and let's just try to hang on to the rope. Like you fell out the train. Let's just try to see how long you can hold on to the tube before you let go. That's how I felt my career was, because the athletes are just so. It's unbelievable the kind of athleticism you see, from offensive linemen. I mean, guys that can move and are crazy good. But one team, I think it was really just we always played the Seahawks hard. Now, if we had better offenses at that time, we could have beaten them more often than we did. It seemed like every single week we play in Week 17 in Seattle. We'd be up at halftime. And then they'd come roaring back with that crowd, and some weird crap would happen. The thought that the Giants beat the Seahawks this week, if that crowd was there, something weird would have happened. The ball would have hit Colt McCoy in the forehead and it would have bounced. They would have picked it up for a touchdown. There's not one area more hurt by no crowd than Seattle.
As a Saints fan, I know it all too well.
Gosh,
Going
that too.
what going to Seattle means.
Yeah, but even the Superdome, man, like the Superdome is a place. Come on, man, you can't go down there and get a win as an opposing offense. You can't operate. Can't operate down there.
All right. Well, this was a great conversation. James, would you like to plug yourself before we get anything else?
Yeah. So Bishop and Laurinaitis, 9 to noon Eastern time in Columbus, Ohio, 97.1 The Fan. So if you're driving through, tune in and watching Big Ten Network games. I think I got Maryland Rutgers this weekend, although IU Purdue just canceled. So that always, the old Oak and Bucket won't happen. So that means that crews can get shifted and all that. It's like studying for a midterm, but you don't know if the teacher's going to throw you the bone or not have it. So I'm studying, but I have no idea whether I'll get to work it.
All right, cool. Thanks for taking the time for us this week.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me.
All first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 into their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. So that's a $40 value for just $20. And you'll get that opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy football and prop games at one of the fastest growing fantasy sports sites in the USA in Monkey Knife Fight. Go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. PFF and Sunday Night Football's Chris Collinsworth is teaming up with one of the best players on and off the field, 49ers All-Pro cornerback Richard Sherman. The Chris Collinsworth podcast featuring Richard Sherman is available now wherever you find your podcast. They will provide the most interesting football conversation in sports every week. And sometimes that means the discussion will venture off the field too. Additionally, Chris will be taking a dive into the game of football as he sees it, inviting in the best and brightest to talk about everything that is happening in the great game of football. Mark your calendars. You do not want to miss the best 60 minutes of insight this season. MooseFit is a premium online workout program and remote coaching service that provides you with daily workouts based on your goals, the time you have available, and the equipment that you have at your disposal. Purchase your MooseFit membership and a MooseFit coach will reach out to you with a questionnaire. Based on the information provided in the questionnaire, your MooseFit coach will either assign a pre-made program to you or will create your custom program for you. No two programs are the same. MooseFit is well equipped to help provide you with daily workouts that will help you reach your health and fitness goals. For PFF listeners, use code PFF50 and receive 50% off your first month. For more information, check them out on Instagram at MooseFit or on their website, www.moosefit.com. In these uncertain times, life is full of questions like, when should I start thinking about life insurance? But however difficult these questions may be, Western and Southern can help you answer them. Backed by over 130 years of experience, together, we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind. Western and Southern Financial Group. Life insurance, retirement, investments. I am joined as always by the big homie Anthony Treash to preview and break down the coming slate of games this weekend. It could change by the time you're hearing this. We don't know what's going on. The only thing I know for sure, and this changed from, like I've said, from when I had James on the show earlier, that Ohio State is going to be playing in the Big Ten title game. That's the thing we know. They're not going to play this week, most likely, but probably in the Big Ten title game. Anyways, let's get on to it. So Friday, this is one thing that has changed in like the last 2 minutes that we're recording this. Utah is taking on Colorado. It's supposed to be Friday night. It's going to be the big nude Saturday game on Fox. Utah goes to Colorado. I think this is a tough test for Colorado's undefeated, man. This is a tough test for Colorado because Sam Noir has looked very good at times, but this is a really tough defense to go against. I think. I mean, it's like it's not the Utah defense of last year, but I think it's still going to be a tough test for a young quarterback.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've been pretty impressed with Utah just because, like we mentioned, we weren't really sure what we were getting, and the offense has not been all that great, but the defense. I mean, look at their starting defensive backs from last year. They're all in the NFL, and they've somehow managed to be. I wouldn't say anything great, but at least average at best, maybe a slightly above average. I mean, there's still some unknown there because it's been a small sample, but still, Sam Noir. I mean, the first two games I was incredibly impressed. He had PFF grades just shy of that elite level, under 90.0, but then the last 2 weeks as a passer, just fallen flat against San Diego State and Arizona. So I'm kind of curious. I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup. If you told me Colorado was going to be undefeated to start off this year, I would have said you're absolutely crazy. There's no way about it. But I'm kind of looking forward to this one. I don't think it's kind of like you said, it's a test for both Sam Neuer and Utah's defense. I still don't think Colorado's 21st best team in college football. I'm not buying into that hype, but it's going to be an interesting one.
It's too bad they're not going to get a shot at any type of. They go undefeated and not even have a chance at the Pac-12 title game, I believe, because I don't think they play USC. And I was looking at this could have changed, but I was looking at the tie-breaking standings. I don't think they would get in if they're both undefeated. Okay, moving on. Alabama takes on Arkansas. Last chance for Alabama to lose a game in the regular season. That is not going to happen.
No, it's going to be a stat padding, fest. Arkansas early in the year impressed me on defense. Ever since then, after like the first, 3 or 4 games, had just been really kind of bad. Ever since that Florida game, it's like the Florida game broke them. So I would expect Alabama to do the same. Mac Jones, Devonta Smith continuing on their Heisman track.
But I still, shout out to the Arkansas team for winning 3 games this year.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure if they have an opponent during championship week. Let me see that really quickly. It doesn't say so here, but
somehow Bryles has made Felipe Franks at times look like he's actually good.
This is one of the most. It's 3 more wins than I think any of us thought they were going to get this year, which is honestly incredible. Now, is it sustained success? Can they get the players they want in? Are they that? Is it there's a 1-year thing? Who knows? But honestly, just good on them because that's an amazing feat. Georgia plays number 25 Missouri. So I don't know how this happened, but Missouri is the 25th ranked team in the country, and they host Georgia. Look, Missouri has shown that they can move the ball quite a bit. Georgia. So there's a chance they score a little bit on Georgia. I don't think so, but there's a chance because again, Georgia has looked great against teams that they recruit better than, and they have not looked good. The defense has not looked good against teams that recruit at, let's say, an even level than them. Missouri doesn't recruit at that level, obviously, but I think this is probably one of the better offenses that they're going to face that they face this year. So let's say Missouri scores some points. You know where I'm going with this. Can the Georgia quarterback situation, JT Daniels, is it like, no problem, we got JT Daniels now, we're good?
We still don't know. I'm throwing out that South Carolina game because he didn't have to do anything. He didn't do jack squat in that game. We still need to see him, build off of that strong debut. I think this is, so Georgia's favored by 13 points. And while I do not agree with Missouri being 25th in the country, I do think they're a little bit closer than that spread indicates. Eli Drinkwitz, he's done absolutely amazing things with this offense. I was expecting this offense to be the worst in the SEC. I thought Missouri would be worse than Arkansas, and here we are. They Connor Bazelak, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm just going to refer to him as Connor. He's been incredible in his first year starting for him. So, I'm excited for this program down the road in the future. It's really going to hinge on JT Daniels just because the defense really hasn't been as good as I thought it was going to be. I wasn't expecting things from Missouri, but I thought the defense would be a lot better than the offense, but that hasn't been the case. So, he's going to have another strong game because, like you said, I think Missouri is going to put up points.
Oklahoma goes to West Virginia. Is this another week where Anthony Treash picks West Virginia to win a football game?
No, it's not. I can't. I can't do it after that Ohio State game. We can't ignore what they did up until, that game against Iowa State. That secondary was cooking all year long. But at the end of the day, Oklahoma's offense is better than Iowa State and Brock Purdy.
It is, but you know what? They haven't been that, and I think we kind of expected this.
Lately,
yeah. Lately they haven't been this incredible machine like they've been in years past. But I think, and you know what? They're still going to most likely win the Big 12 title, and then they're just going to set themselves up for a really good run next year, I think. Okay, Illinois goes to Northwestern. Northwestern preps for the Big 10 title game, which will be against Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken. Northwestern's going to win this game, I think. But it's going to be a close game because this is what Northwestern does. They're going to play close games. What would you have to see in this game? I mean, I guess it's pretty obvious, but what would you have to see in this game for you to tell me they have a chance against Ohio State next week?
It's just hard to even think of or talk about the Big Ten right now because I am so infuriated with just the way things have shaken out. You know, I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. I wasn't a fan of them, tweaking the rules last minute because Ohio State. Because let's be honest, if this happened in Northwestern, hypothetically speaking, they're not changing anything. Northwestern just does not play in the Big Ten championship game. But anyway, I digress there a little bit. What was the question again? I'm sorry. I was fired up. Well, what do we need to see from Northwestern?
Yeah.
What do we need to see from Northwestern? It's Peyton Ramsey. I mean, these last few weeks, he has kind of fallen off track just a little bit. But he should because this Illinois defense is not good. As we found out when Graham Mertz torched him, we always refer back to that game. It's been pretty much the same case.
I've talked about that I've referred back to that game on any radio hit that I've done in the past 2 weeks. Because it's it's kind of important to the story of college football this year, at least definitely in the Big Ten. Okay, let's move on. Coastal, my boys. They go to Troy. So they've already clinched a spot in the Sun Belt title game against Louisiana. But for this whole thing to work, they can't go out there and lose to Troy. I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know shit about Troy. So you know anything about Troy?
I mean, their secondary has been a little bit better than I was expecting this year. I think the whole team has been better than I expected. But Coastal Carolina, they're not losing to Troy. I mean, 13.5 points right now. If I were a betting man on this game, I'd probably hammer Coastal Carolina. Their offense, you wrote about it today. I mean, fire article, the offense is just been rolling. So I'm sticking with it. I think Coastal Carolina is going to blow them out. And I'm switching sides. I'm on your boys now since my boys lost to your boys.
Yeah. One of the things that was interesting when I was researching the Coastal article was how much better they've gotten incrementally over the years. So, dude, they've been at FBS since 2017. This is craziness. And they were bad that first year. And then on offense, they got a little better. And then they got a little better. And now, my whole the thesis of my article is you put this craziness of an offense with a real ass quarterback, and they've been I'm not sure where they rank in EPA per play, but it's top 10 in the country. So it's,
when Grayson McCall's under quarterback and they don't have Fred Payton out there, they're up there.
He's really good at one of the things I noticed is you expect he's good at everything 90 whatever grade. That means you're pretty good at everything, but surprisingly really good at outbreaking routes. Just has great touch. You saw it a lot in the BYU game, outbreaking routes. He was completed for passes. Okay, let's go to the ACC. North Carolina takes on Miami, and I think we both expect this to be the game of the week. I'm super excited because I'm still pissed about North Carolina not giving us a great game against Notre Dame, and I know you are too. So This is the chance for North Carolina. I don't care if they win or lose. They just need to redeem themselves in terms of entertainment value. Do you see that happening this week?
My heart says yes, but my brain says I don't know, Anthony. I don't know if you want to go that far based off what we saw against North Carolina, because that offensive line, and this Miami defensive line has been on fire. I mean, Quincy Roche just absolutely mauled Duke last week. I don't think they're to that degree, but still, if I'm picking the trenches here, it's Miami 10 times out of 10, and that makes me a little concerned. And now you get flashbacks to what happened in that Notre Dame game. They're just going to crawl up in a little shell, and they're going to let De'Aaron King run all over them at the end of the day. So I don't know. I think at this point I'm going to have to pick Miami. Who are you picking in this one?
That's a good question. My heart kind of says North Carolina figures it out, but at the same time, the O-line versus D-line issue is so great because that's exactly the issue that they had against Notre Dame, and they weren't able to, Sam Howell, so yeah, the RPO stuff is great, and they do create a lot of explosive plays off the RPO, but for my money, what really gets them going is that show RPO look and then run an actual play action off it. That's how they're able to get people down the field. But you need time for that, right? And they did not have any time to do that against Notre Dame. Will they have time to do it against Miami? I don't know. And Miami's
if there's any, like within early in the game, if there's any hint that they're not going to have enough time to do it, they're not even going to attempt it again. They're just not going to.
And Miami's good. I was thinking about Derek King recently. It's like, I get why he's not thought of as a first round talent at quarterback. I get it. But at the same time, I don't get it. Because I was thinking I'm changing my views on how I look at quarterbacks now, and I'm just like, yo, give me the guy with insane physical tools, and we'll figure it out later. Like in any other position. And this guy has the Russell Wilson. Go ahead. Watch your mouth. No, what are you about to say?
I was just about to say, so you're taking Trey Lance over Zach Wilson?
Oh, Zach Wilson has stupid skills too. Like you see the way that he out of the pocket he makes plays. Like he's like Aaron Rodgers out of the pocket. But no, I'm not. Okay, I'm not. I'm not doing that.
Well, I agree with you. I like Derek King. I think it's the most valuable position in the NFL. And like you said, what he's doing out there, you're getting ready to say something about Russell Wilson. I want you to continue that thought.
No, the trajectory of his deep ball is Russell Wilson-esque because of it's the moon ball thing that our boss says on TV once in a while. And then the athletic ability is insane. We've seen that throughout the season. The issue is he doesn't play in a real offense. And his two big seasons, Houston 2018, Miami 2020, they don't really make you. It's like there's one thing like Clemson where there's not a lot of NFL reads going on, but then there's another thing with these type of plays where these type of offenses where there's really not a lot of reading going on. But he's accurate. He has all the physical tools, so I'm on board the Derek King train. Let's get on to a complete opposite game here then from North Carolina, Miami. We go to the Big Ten. Wisconsin plays Iowa. The interesting thing for me is like Wisconsin clearly is not as good. The defense is very good, but I think as a team they're not as good as we thought they were. All of a sudden you lose to Iowa. Iowa becomes 6-2. Wisconsin becomes 2-3. Like what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak any negative talk about Iowa because I've done that every single time we talk about Iowa. I'm going to do a little bit positive because I was doing the secondary rankings and then I was like, oh yeah, they have a really good secondary. Riley Moss, I've been impressed with him. He's broken out this year in his starting role, but also the safety, Jack Kerner. Yeah, I would remember when we were doing the preview mag earlier this summer, he was one of their top five, one of our breakout players for Iowa. And we weren't even sure if he was going to play this year because he got in a severe boating accident. His friend actually had his leg amputated. Didn't look like he was even going to play this year. He started every single game for him. He's been great. One of the highest graded safeties in the Big Ten in coverage. So there's a little positive vibes for Iowa. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. That's all I have to say also. Texas is going to beat Kansas by a lot of points. This is Sam Ehlinger's last regular season game. I think he's going to put on a show against Kansas.
I hope he does.
You have four seconds to talk about this game.
Kansas's outside cornerbacks have actually been surprisingly productive. That's positive. Positive vibes only today.
All right, in a game that should not be played, LSU is going to go to the Swamp to take on Florida. LSU is just losing players left and right. Eric Gilbert looks like he has opted out for the rest of the season, and he might even transfer out of LSU. The sky is falling in Baton Rouge right now.
How are you feeling? Are you concerned?
I think I'm a little concerned now. They can't play football, and I think the whole thing would be different if Miles Brennan was healthy for the second half of the season. We saw what he did. He proved himself, and that was a guy that I was like, I don't really know. Like, can he actually play? I don't know. And it turns out he can play. That's for sure. And since he's been out, the offense can't move the ball. Looked good against a bad South Carolina defense, but other than that, they can't move the ball. And this team is just lost, and people want to get out. And I was thinking, there's a chance because there's some really good players returning on defense that could return on defense and offense too. that I'm like, maybe they won't even return either, and then next year might be pretty bad too. But
where would they go? Where would Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley go?
Well, Derek Stingley doesn't have to play football in college anymore.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. So, he could have quit this past offseason and settled down for 2 years, hunkered down.
Because then I was like, with everyone coming back on LSU's defense, they didn't have a good year. I was like, my wishful thinking was, what if Jabril Cox comes back for another year? You know what I mean? All these guys get to up their draft stock. Jacoby Stevens is gone, but like a lot of guys like Glenn Logan could come back. I don't know. It's just depressing. But Florida, on the other hand, has been undepressing. They've been great. They give you I'm going to write an article about this, but on offense, they give you a no-win situation with how they run their empty stuff. Now, this is the most efficient offense in empty sets in the past 6 years, by far. They are incredibly good. If you play one high and you put a lot of zone defenders underneath, they get one-on-ones down the field. And guess who's the best receiver, regardless of position, the best receiver in the country is? It's the tight end Kyle Pitts. So you don't win there. If you go too high, then they have the middle of the field low underneath open. Guess who is one of the best underneath shakers as a route runner in college football this year? It's Kadarius Toney. So it's like you cannot win when you play against this team. And Kyle Trask puts the ball where it needs to be every single play.
But you can, Kyle, this is a pretty good – I know LSU secondary. I mean, their slot coverage has been bad. Cordell Flott, man, he's just been buttered. I mean, they've just been getting absolutely destroyed in the slot. But can Kyle Pitts win against Derek Stingley Jr. or Eli Ricks? I don't know.
Well, and that's the game, right? Because LSU's going to play man coverage because that's what that's the only thing they do now. So that's the game. And I don't think so. I mean, as much as I like those two players, like LSU has been bad in man coverage. And there's enough things you can do when another team is running man coverage. And they're also just okay at it that you can do it to win. And I think Florida's going to do that, to tell you the truth. All right, let's get to.
Yeah, I was just playing devil's advocate. I think I wanted to make you feel better.
Oklahoma State, they bounced back last. Wait, what game was last? What Oklahoma State game? It was a TCU game.
Oklahoma State's only favored by 5.5 in this one. My gosh, what are we?
My mind is a blur. It was the TCU game.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so they lost to TCU, and we weren't sure. Like we had said, hey, they gave up a lot of points, and the past couple of weeks, we weren't sure. The defense actually played okay, but then they still lost to the boy Max Duggan. I still think they beat Baylor, but I don't know what the direction of this team is right now.
There is no absolute. I think Baylor might score less than 10 points. I understand. Like Oklahoma State's offense is not good. We talked about it on the Monday pod. They forced 3 turnovers. Eamon Ogbongbemiga, 3 forced fumbles, no points off them. None.
Like what the? Sorry.
But at the same time, this is the Baylor offense that has been horrendously bad this year against one of the best coverage units in college football. I just cannot see that working well for the Baylor Bears.
Yeah, I just think one of the issues for Oklahoma State going forward is you're losing Tylan Wallace, you're losing Chuba, you're losing, I forgot his name on the offensive line, I believe. The defense is probably not. The defense is probably not going to be that good next. The defense is probably not going to as good next year because it's just volatile. Like we're just not going to get this type of great season, at least the way they started the season. So I don't know what the direction of this team is. Yeah. All right, USC stays in Los Angeles to play UCLA. We saw Keaton Slovis do the damn thing last week on Sunday Night Football.
2022 number 1 overall pick.
There we go. That's all we need to say about this game.
And I'm so upset. I'm so upset that he did that on Sunday Night Football. Nobody cared. I think we were the only people that even saw that he just absolutely lit it up and was the best quarterback of the week. One of the best quarterback performances I've seen of the year. No one knows about it because we were watching Sunday Night Football. Anyway, I'm back on the Keaton Slovis train. Number 1 overall pick here in a couple of years. He's the real deal.
I'm on board too. Okay, last one. This game has lost its luster. Remember how much we've talked about this game for a long time, and it's kind of lost its luster. But San Diego State going to Provo, Utah to take on BYU is still a very interesting game because here's another good defense that Zach Wilson has to play against. San Diego State, the season's been this year. They're 4-3, but they come to play with the defense.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego State, so in our secondary rankings that came out today, they're number 12th in the entire country, one of the best in the group of 5. They have allowed the lowest success rate, again, on pass plays in the FBS. Granted, some of the teams they're facing aren't all that great, but that's just been absolutely incredible. I was kind of disappointed in Dwayne Johnson Jr., the safety, his kind of performance. I was expecting big things out of him, but they're still getting good performance out of Tariq Thompson. So, yeah, this is going to be a big test for Zach Wilson. I'm still upset my boys lost to your boys because now, again, this game does not mean as much. But I think it's going to be another big day for Zach Wilson, and another game to prove that he truly is Heisman worthy, one of the best quarterbacks in college football.
All right, then. That is the top 25 rundown for this week. Join us early Monday morning when we come out with the post-game pod from this weekend's action. So there you have it. That was the PFF College Football Podcast with James Laurinaitis as my guest, and then, of course, Anthony Treash. An interesting weekend. I think we're just going to, there's some stuff that could happen. We talked about a little bit about Northwestern, Alabama, Arkansas. It could happen. The thing that I think would probably the most, and I know I sound biased saying this, but there's a chance LSU beats Florida. There's a chance that they put it all together, and there's still really good players on defense, and there's a chance that happens. So there's still some interesting games. BYU, San Diego State's interesting to look forward to this weekend, but obviously next weekend's the big one, conference championship weekend, and so we will see you later this after the weekend, and then next week.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.